Senator Fields, you ready? Try to clear the room.
Ready, fit.
I have Dr. Pope and Caroline Roma to join at the table, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, first let me thank you for
Go ahead, Senator Fields. I had to talk to the president in a minute.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, let
I was
me
just
first
asking him, did he want me to hold his in committee? Okay, that's all.
It's too late.
Mr. Chairman, let me first thank you for all of the hard work that you have done with the Education Committee for the kids of this state and for the citizens of this state. Your work has not been unnoticed. Many people, when I talk to them about mandatory kindergarten, they basically say, well, I didn't know it wasn't mandatory already. Experts have opined that 90% of the brain is developed between the ages of 5 years, birth and 5 years of age. 39 states and the District of Columbia requires districts to offer kindergarten, as well as the state of Louisiana. A total of 19 states and the District of Columbia requires students to attend kindergarten, including Texas, Mississippi, Alabama, Florida, and Georgia. For every dollar spent in early childhood education, we return 7%. Investing in childhood education just make good business sense. Approximately 2,800 students in Louisiana do not participate in early childhood education or kindergarten. The Department of Education statistics suggest that in February of 2021, we had about 5.6% decrease in the number of students enrolled in kindergarten. From the prior year, the total number declined 54,000 in February of 2021, or 20 rather, to 51,000 and 51,010 in 2021. The bill should have a zero fiscal impact for 2022. Nothing in this bill impacts parental choice for homeschooling. In the Senate Education Committee, we put an amendment on the bill that provided for allowing homeschool parents to homeschool their kids for kindergarten. I have with me at the table Dr. Janet Pope with the Louisiana School Board Association and Ms. Caroline Roma with the Louisiana Public Charter School Association to further discuss the bill.
Dr. Janet Pope, Executive Director of the Louisiana School Boards Association. We're in full support of Senator Fields' kindergarten bill. We believe that students who attend kindergarten will make for better prepared first graders. We always dream about having universal pre-K in the state of Louisiana. We can't have universal pre-K without having universal kindergarten. Our school boards want to be here for our parents and our students as a resource. Thank you.
I guess my question would be to you, Dr. Pope, and I may ask a few questions because it's my second time dealing with this bill. Other states, how many other states require it?
There
19.
are 19 states that require mandatory kindergarten.
Okay, how many of them in the South?
Florida, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, Texas.
The 5.
There may be others, but I remembered those.
Yes.
Are you positive?
Georgia.
I hate to say.
Did you say Georgia?
Often wrong, never in doubt.
Well, you have a card. I just want to make sure, you signed a card that you're giving true testimony.
Yes, sir, I did.
Okay. I think we have some more questions. Senator Cloud?
Yes, thank you. Either of you ladies, Dr. Pope or Ms. Romer, you just mentioned a few states, Florida, Georgia, Alabama, Texas. Do those all rank higher better outcomes, higher scores than Louisiana? Those
For
states?
kindergartners or in general where they
Overall
are academic?
outcomes.
Some are higher. I think we are always competing with Mississippi for the low end.
So right now, if a parent chooses not to send their child to school for whatever reason, first grade, what are the penalties? What happens legally to those parents?
At this point in time, there are no penalties.
So a parent can choose just not to educate their child in the state of Louisiana, and there are no penalties.
No, I'm talking in kindergarten. At this point in time, it's not mandatory.
But I'm talking like 1st through 12th. If they choose not to put their child in a homeschool program or public school or private school, what's the legal ramifications right now?
So there will be penalties which would go through truancy, typically in a school system, in a community.
It goes through truancy,
Yes.
and that they could be subject to what? Is it fines? Is it jail time? Yeah.
It runs the gamut from my understanding. I haven't been specifically involved in that, but coming from a school system, yes, they would be turned into truancy, and then it would go to a judge.
Okay. I wonder, my dear friend Senator Fields, would you be open to those same fines, penalties, and consequences not being imposed on parents of kindergartners if they choose to keep that child home during kindergarten? Can they be an exception to not having to have legal ramifications?
I mean, we can talk about it between now and the floor. I mean, that's something we can certainly talk about.
Okay, you're looking at me. She asked the question.
No, I'm looking at you because, yes, we can talk about it between now and the floor.
Would you welcome an amendment, or you just want to talk about it?
I mean, the whole purpose here is not to penalize the kid or the parent. The
Good.
purpose here is to get the kid into school and educate them.
Right. I realize we want to motivate. And look, I'm a teacher. I was trained in the Montessori method, the absorbent mind, right? And so I realize at home, were you as well?
I have a son who is in the 7th grade, and we did Montessori from 2 to 5.
So I understand the value, the sooner the better, right? Even at birth. But I think that some of that happens at home as well. And I did that. I kept my children at home. And I would have not been comfortable if the state would have come in and said at kindergarten, and I wouldn't have wanted to actually have to enter into an actual homeschool program and it'd be so formal or there could be consequences. So I see the value in getting them educated, starting them early. I think that will provide for the greatest outcomes, but also don't want to penalize families for choosing to. Time is short. It's just a season. We have our children at home. And so also in my area, and then being in education, there's many opportunities as young as 3 to get your child involved in school. So if we can bring some kind of exception to the rule as far as legalities go for parents, motivate them to do so, but not penalize them for wanting to keep their babies at home a little longer. I hope that you'll welcome an amendment like that.
All right. Something we can certainly talk about.
Thank you.
That was a lawyer answer.
Senator Henry has a question.
Okay, so doctor, the annual cost on the notes I got, the state increases expenditures by $2 million to $12 million annually. Depends how many kindergartners we have. And there may also be associated local costs to the school districts. So they're going to pay their share. Mm-hmm. Is that going to come out of their local taxes, or is that going to be out of the general fund and the MFP?
I think it would be different in each school system. I would have to survey our school systems for that information.
So do you have any, did you look at the fiscal note on this?
Yes, sir.
So how much would you guess percentage would the locals be responsible for?
I'm not sure. I'm not comfortable answering that question. Carolyn?
So the MFP is a formula that's already established for kind of an ebb and flow in the enrollment. So in any given year, we sometimes see an influx of students say, in kindergarten. In New Orleans, for example, it's actually dropped. But on average, it's 65% state to 35% local.
And that's what I thought it was going to be 65-35.
It depends on what district. Some districts use more of their local money than state money.
I don't believe that the state currently tracks who is not in kindergarten that is eligible for kindergarten, but the numbers we've seen is around 2,800 students. And again, this bill would not prevent a student that turns 5 by September 30th they could stay at home and be homeschooled. Nothing prevents that. But it is establishing that at that age that kindergarten would be required.
Senator Henry?
But you're not just dealing with students that go to public school as relates to MFP. It's all students, correct? All 5-year-olds. So what is the scenario if, in my area, a tremendous amount of students go to Catholic schools and you have to apply? So what is the scenario where the child goes to apply for kindergarten and there's not a spot at the school that they would normally, that they have brothers and sisters go, and it's just a busy school year. They're not able to get into the school that they would like to attend. And then they're set with the idea of, I either have to move into a different school or wait a year, which some people have done. How does that process work? We're always assuming that it's public school where there'll always be a spot. But this doesn't just cover public schools. It covers public, non-public, Catholic, the whole bit, correct?
Correct. So
if there's not a spot available at the school that the child would like to attend for whatever reason, how does that, are we going to, I'm not a big fan of telling a parent, okay, well, you just have to find another school for your child to go to. If there's a school that fits, you want them to go there as you would have wanted for your children. What is the process for that as it relates to non-public schools being if they don't have a spot for that child?
Well, if there's not a spot for the child, I mean they have to enroll or homeschool.
And that's so. I get what you're trying to do, and as we discussed yesterday, but we got to figure something as it relates to that, because in essence, what you're doing is the state is telling a parent who would normally maybe sends their kid wants to send their kid to a particular school, and they can't. The spot's not available. You say, well, you got to go find another spot. Well, you're assuming there's a school right around the corner that's available. And if it's not, or if you go for a day and it doesn't fit for that child, which is why some people homeschool, right? It's a different environment, and why everyone goes to different schools. I don't want to be in the position necessarily of forcing a parent to send their child to a school that doesn't fit for the child simply because we have a state law that says it. We got to figure that out, which I'm more than capable of working with Senator Field to do that, but we've got to figure that part of it out. Does that make sense to you? Do you have any suggestions off the top of your head of how that would work?
I don't. Again, currently public schools must serve kindergarten. They must have a kindergarten, but the law does not mandate you enroll your child in it. So I speak strictly from a charter school side of it, and we do our projections. We're looking constantly at what's coming in to be prepared for that, whether it's teachers and budgets and that sort of thing. I can't speak from the private school side.
So would it be better if this bill only affected students who anticipated attending a public school?
Potentially.
You follow me? If your goal is to attend a public school, you must, or it would be strongly suggested, or you must attend in kindergarten. That's not perfect, but it's a way that solves the problem of if you're not going to attend a public school and you're going to go to a particular school that's in your area, that might. I know I can read faces, and your two faces say one thing and his says something completely different. But it's just something we just got to work through. That's all I ask you to do, because
I understand. I just think that
they should
we
go
have
to
a
school.
Compelling interest in educating our kids. And,
yeah. But I don't think we disagree on that. I think it's better for everyone to be there. But from my side, to say that right. St. Catherine's full, so now I have to send my kid to another school, and this one's full too. So now, and with a penalty lingering over, they're trying to figure out where to send their school. And Haynes is a magnet school, and they can't get in the magnet school. So now I've just eliminated 3 schools within my district within within a minute and a half. So we just got to work through that.
And if I may say, Senator, I mean, for the most part, I mean, a parent like you, it's not the parent I'm really worried about, quite frankly, because that parent is going to educate that kid, is going to make sure that kid get a quality education from the womb to the tomb.
Yeah,
you
no,
know.
I'm with you, but you get my point
I
on my
understand.
side. So we just got to work through that. That's all.
You through, Senator? Senator Barrow, you have a question?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, let me just kind of commend you or whomever who has the sign language interpreter here. I think this is such a great addition to our committee. I just want to say thank you for that. I wish we could afford to do that for all of our committees because I think that's so very important, but I just want to acknowledge that.
And it is. When we need it for a schools issue or a certain issue, we make sure we try to get someone with sign language capabilities to help the people sitting in the audience, but it is a cost to the legislature.
Yeah, I know, but this is such a great addition, so I just want to commend you on that.
Right.
Senator Fields, and you kind of hit on it at the end of answering the question to Senator Henry, because we do know that there are just certain parents who are just going to make sure at whatever program, whether it's a Montessori program, if it's another program, they have started with their children long before kindergarten age in terms of preparing them. But then there are still another segment of parents who do realize that they do not have to at kindergarten, and we've been pushing for in this state universal pre-K, educating kids from really from birth to 3. There's several different initiatives because we have learned that the important part of development of a child happens in the first 5 years of their lives. And so you are attempting to address those who are falling through the crack, who are not prepared from the beginning, who may not go to a daycare, who may not, participate in any other learning institution, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's what I heard you address. And so there were some questions as it related to the cost going forward. There's no cost this year, but going forward in the MFP, because it's not scheduled to start until 2022. I don't know if I heard, do we know the percentage? How you doing, Caroline? Good to see you.
Senator, nice to see you too.
Yes. Do we have any idea in terms of the cost sharing aspect? I don't know if that was clear or if I heard it. Or I know that there's going to be a differentiation there, and there may be a certain cost to the locals, a certain cost to the state.
Well, I talked to the Department of Education on several occasions, and they're not tracking the kids, so it's hard to determine the real hard costs. I'm of the view that there will be no cost next year because they lost they lost 5.6% of their student population in kindergarten last year. I'm not of the opinion they're going to pick that up next year. And that's due to the pandemic. That's due to hurricanes. I just don't see they're going to pick that population up next year. But I don't know what the cost is, but I do know what the cost is when we don't educate the children.
That's right.
It's astronomical. So, the department is here, and they can answer that question.
And I think that'd be a good question to them. I know the other day we passed a bill on the floor that requires that all children are ready to read or are reading by grade 3. And so when when you're starting behind, it's nearly impossible to catch up. And so now we are requiring that all children are able to read by grade 3. I think this only makes sense to be able to do that. Here's some of the concerns, and maybe you guys can work that out between here and the floor. But at the end of the day, we're attempting to catch those children who are not getting those learning. They're not receiving any type of learning at all to some degree. They're not in daycare. They're not going to any of these places where we know that they could be learning and being educated. So I'm a co-author on this bill. I stand 100% behind it. And at the appropriate time, Mr. Chair, I know we got a long debate, but I'd like to make the motion that we pass it favorably. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. As always, Senator Fields, I tell you, that's why I hate education committee. Sometimes we're 8 hours in education.
Do a great job on education.
I have begged every president to please get me off of education.
And I begged this one president to keep you on.
It's just, I love it, but it's daunting. It's very daunting.
Yeah.
Senator Tarver.
You know, I know this bill won't cost some money, but you know, I look at it this way, Senator Fields, and you mentioned a second ago, you pay now or pay later. It's gonna cost us a fortune in the future. All this crime, this could alleviate a lot of this crime, and getting them while they're young is the best identical thing you can do. Okay, I remember one governor, his name was Buddy Romer. Get them while they're young and train them while they're young, and you don't have to worry about it anymore. And he's 100% correct. So I'm 100% for your bill.
Well, thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Senator Tarver. Senator Boudreaux.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I too wholeheartedly supported what I just, the results are out there. I mean, we see where we are, when we look at a national level. And what I don't want to do is to start amending it and having exceptions and doing this thing because, we're not going to get where we need to get. So I would encourage everyone who has some issues to get with you, Senator Fields, to see how we work those out. But we have to stay there, strength in numbers. And if we're not together on this from the top to the bottom as far as education in the state, we're not going to move the needle. We're fooling ourselves if we start, I don't know what percentage of people would be left out, but we know where this is in place, it makes a difference. And while I'm going to be here and listen to everyone, I mean, to be against it without a resolution or without some additional opportunities for this bill to move is not fair. So I would hope that when people do come up, if there is something that we need to be aware of, that's part of the process. But I don't think we're going to do service to education in this state if we start watering it down and have exceptions all over the place. So more to come later, Mr. Chairman. But I wanted to be clear that if we don't want to do things differently, we know where we are now. And if we don't want to make some changes and do make some hard decisions, and we want to get it right, but I mean we gotta work through some of these situations. We gotta talk to them. And I would just ask anybody who wants to try to amend it or have some issues to get with the author. This is not his first rodeo. He's been around this before. We're going to get there. But if we start peeling off certain people, we might as well just shelve it. And I'm not in favor of shelving it. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Senator Boudreaux. Senator Henry.
I apologize. I missed it on the last one. Under the proposed changes, you're changing present law that allows Jefferson Orleans to establish different standards shall become null and void on June 30th of 2022. You just carving out Orleans and Jefferson. Can someone explain? I just happen to represent both of those, so I was just trying to. If you look on page 6 or 7, just the new proposed law on the bill. And then on lines 5 and 6, look like the provisions of the section shall become null and void on June 30th of 2022. So I'm just trying to figure out.
I can't answer for Jefferson. I'm assuming that Orleans, with its centralized enrollment as a charter school system, probably has exceptions, specifically in Act 91. It's a different part of law around their enrollment, but I don't know more than that.
So Jefferson Orleans were excluded from something, and now they're going to be included. The existing law will be null and void in 2022, which would be about a year from now. So this bill wouldn't affect them until then? Because then if that's the case, everything we talked about earlier, I don't have to worry about.
I think I was taking out Jefferson. Let's see.
I'm not trying to throw you for a loop. I'm just trying to figure out what.
I know you're not, Senator. Can I get Jeannie? Jeannie, can you answer the? I thought we were. Repeat.
Jeannie,
the
I'm
question.
going to light up Miss Email's mic down there on the end for you.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
if you in the bill, look online, page 6 of 7, it says proposed law, and it mentions a minimum threshold for entry in the first grade provides that the provision of present law that allows Jefferson Orleans to establish different entry standards shall become null and void on June 30th of 2022.
That means that Orleans and Jefferson no longer be able to deviate from existing law and set their own admission enrollment age. If the goal is to have
Wait a minute, I can't. Let's say.
He's
let
trying
me
to put
add
us
you.
both on. That's all.
Let me add you. Email and Henry.
I
Okay, you
think-
should both
So,
be
so
on.
current law, Orleans and Jefferson follows a different set of guidelines as relates to.
I don't know if they've established a different set of guidelines.
They
They
just-
are allowed to. They are authorized by law.
By law.
To-
So
to-
this would prohibit would change that obviously.
Right. It would make it mandatory and uniform across the state in terms of compulsory school attendance.
And do we know if that would affect anything else going on in Orleans and Jefferson aside from this?
It should not.
Gotcha. Okay. If
I-
yes, ma'am.
On the back row here, saying that originally for some places it's 7 years old for school,
Okay.
and so believe that Orleans and Jefferson were both doing a younger age than 7.
They had the ability to.
We had so we had the ability to go to 5 if we wanted to, which the current law says.
Right. Not.
Well, what the the
Proposed.
proposed law says it could get to 5. Currently, Orleans and Jefferson could do 5, which is not the standard right now. The standard would be 7.
Correct.
So we're kind of, I guess, in a way, we're somewhat
Already doing
doing it, just without the penalty side. Correct?
Exactly.
Gotcha. Okay, we'll figure it out.
I can't remember. My Owen was in school in New Orleans, and we were there at 5, kindergarten bricolage.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you. You done, Senator?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Senator Cloud.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Of the 3,000 children that are not participating in kindergarten right now, what, and you may not be able to say this with complete assurity, like maybe, I don't, do you guys have an understanding of what their socioeconomic status is? And are these more of the poverty, children that are living in poverty? Is that where we are? What of the 3,000 children, what is the socioeconomic status of the large percent of them?
I don't think we can say with any certainty because we're not tracking them at this point. There's no tracking.
I guess I'm just wondering if these kids don't have as much opportunity, and we're trying to remedy that with this. I'm just curious. Okay. Another question I think that we may have, Ms. Johnson, are you able to expand on what the current penalties are under the statute for parents or guardians that don't send their children to school? You'll have to add. Thank you.
All right. Under the current statute, RS 17-221, subsection A, paragraph 2, if you violate the provisions related to compulsory school attendance, the fine for the parent or legal guardian is a maximum of $250 and not more than 30 days imprisonment or both. It requires the court to impose a minimum condition of probation, which may include the parent to participate in 40 hours of school or community service activities, or a combination of 40 hours of school or community service and attendance in parenting classes or family counseling sessions. That's approved by the court of jurisdiction. So that's the current penalty.
Okay, so in that case, that's what I would have been subjected to. Mr. Chair, just before we move any further, we do have some cards, 2 of which want to speak. One,
Wait a minute.
if you're ready for that.
I'm not ready to move there yet.
Okay.
You concluded with your questions this time?
Yes, sir. I may have an amendment. I just wanted to hear everyone out before I bring the amendment, if I bring it.
Okay. Do you have an amendment?
I wanted to.
I done lost my secretary. There she is.
Senator Cloud, Senator White, can we emphasize the fact that parents still have a choice to homeschool their students? In a previous life, working in a school system, we would have wanted all of our kids in kindergarten. And as a first grade teacher, when I did have students who entered their first day in first grade, they were far behind, not only on the academic side, but also on the social side. So at the end of the day, parents still have a choice. We believe in choice. And also, too, our school systems and our charter schools want to be a resource to our parents. So if they need resources, we have them at our school systems or at our charter schools. So I just wanted to emphasize that we still have choice in this.
What does that look like? So for a parent with a 5-year-old that doesn't want to enroll them in a public or private school, they get with the DOE and they enroll them, or they actually just have to notify DOE of a homeschool program that they have them in?
Right. And also, too, working with the school system, there's a parent-child center in each school system. Also, sometimes they go hand in hand with the homeless department, which is through federal departments, Title I funding, and other funding. And so each school system, and I'm sure our charter schools have that as well, where parents have like what we would call a place to go for help and assistance. So in working with some parents who realize that their child may be delayed, but they still want to keep them home or homeschool them, they have a resource. And that's what we really want for our parents and our students.
Okay. I appreciate you saying that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you have an amendment?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to hear the speakers before the amendment. Is that possible?
Sure. If y'all like to yield, I guess we'll hear Ethan with Bessie. You have a blue card. Ethan Melanson. What district you represent, Mr. Melanson? What district do you represent?
I'm with Bessie, the entire board.
The whole board?
Yeah,
Oh, you're not a board member.
I'm not a board member.
Okay,
no,
you're
sir.
just with Bessie. Okay, go ahead.
Ethan Melanson, Louisiana Department of Education, representing Bessie. Bessie has decided to support this bill. They believe that it's very important to have our students learning at a young age and to make sure that they enter into the system. Being able to read and work on level. For the past few years, we have been working to get students into pre-K, into all the early learning centers, so they have decided to support this bill. And I'll take any questions if there is any.
I don't see any.
All right, thank you.
It's in the Education Committee. Miss Barrow, Senator Barrow, hold on. She has one. She hit it right at the end. Senator Barrow?
Yes. Thank you so very much, and I appreciate the department taking a position on the bill. Do you have any idea in terms of the cost sharing aspect of it?
Yes, so I believe Beth Ciano, who is our Assistant Superintendent of Finance for the department, has said that it is a 35-65 share. I think that's what she had said. Keith, am I right? Yes, on average.
I must have missed that part.
We talked about it early.
Oh, okay.
We tried to hit the money part early.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. I have a card in opposition, former Representative Jenkins. If you'd like to come to the table.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members. It's a pleasure to be with you and to see
Welcome.
some former colleagues here, Senator Tarver and Senator Johns. It's great to see you. This bill is really about compulsion. It's about taking away the rights of our parents to decide whether their children go to kindergarten or not. Right now, the law is that from age 7 to 18, you have to send your children to school. There's a legitimate, compelling state interest for that because we have an interest in an educated population. However, there's not that compelling interest at age 5, or in the case of this bill actually compels you to send your babies away to an institution at age 4 years and 10 months, if you read the bill. So it goes down from age 7 to 4 years and 10 months, where you have to turn your child over to an institution. 41 years ago, Dr. Raymond Moore appeared before this committee on our homeschooling legislation. He was the author of 2 books, Better Late Than Early and School Can Wait, published by Reader's Digest Press. Those 2 books compiled all the research at that time, and the research data really hasn't changed. And that is this, that early childhood education has no educational benefit. In fact, if you take kids who go to kindergarten and kids who do not go to kindergarten, of course, first and second grade, the ones who went to kindergarten are doing better. But by age 8, there is no difference. There is no difference whether a child went to kindergarten or not by age 8. But what Dr. Moore found in all the research done in America, where there were some very significant differences, and the research today proves it. No educational benefit, but greater behavioral problems with the children who go to kindergarten. Greater behavioral problems. You know, in this legislature, one of the biggest problems, in my opinion, is peer dependency. We're always so afraid we might offend a member if we amend their bill or oppose their bill. Where does all this peer dependency come from? Kids get in trouble when they're age 12, 13, 14 with drugs, sex, crime. Where did that peer dependency come from? The research shows it comes from early institutionalization of children at ages 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Why? It doesn't matter whether it's a daycare center. It doesn't matter if it's public school, private school, Christian school, Catholic school. It doesn't matter what the philosophy of the school is. It doesn't matter how qualified the teachers are. Because the main influence in these early years in these institutional settings is the other children. And what children learn at age 3, 4, 5 is that what's important is what your peers think. What your peers think. Not what your parents think, but what your peers think. And by age 12, 13, 14, that becomes a tremendous problem. Peer dependency is developed at these critical years. Now, when we say that, yes, all the learning is going on before age 5 and 6, that's true. But that does not mean that a school is the best place to develop education. In fact, what the research shows is that in any normal household, the home is the richest place for early childhood education. Now, in my case, none of my children went to kindergarten. I didn't go to kindergarten. We've done very well. You have to realize that there are thousands of parents in this state who don't believe that they should send their children to kindergarten. And I would say the most irresponsible parents certainly would be getting rid of their kids and putting them off somewhere. You really think that it's the irresponsible parents that are keeping their kids at home? That doesn't make any sense at all. Now, Senator Fields, and I want to say how much respect I have for him. He is always so kind and good to work with, and I mean that very sincerely. But you ask him how many students are there that would be affected by this? He does not know. He asks, are they from poor backgrounds? He does not know. They don't know. They're making this whole argument that this is somehow going to save these children when they don't know how many they are or who they are or what their circumstances are. And they're coming from a flawed presumption that kindergarten is going to help these kids educationally. The data shows that by age 8, it does not matter whether you went to kindergarten or not. But the data also shows that early schooling or institutionalization leads to peer dependency, which leads right into 12 and 13, 14, 15-year-olds getting into early sex, drugs, pornography, and all the other problems that young kids have. Keep your babies at home if you choose. Right now, we have the right to keep our babies at home until age 7. This bill would take that right away. Now, I want to refer you to the Louisiana Children's Code, the Children's Code and the preamble. It sets the policy on the relationship between parents and children. I'll just read you a portion of it. The people of Louisiana recognize the family as the most fundamental unit of human society, and that preserving families is essential to free society. It says that parents should make the decisions regarding where and with whom the child shall reside, the educational, moral, ethical, and religious training of the child. That's the responsibility of the parents, and it's recognized under Louisiana law. Now, I know there's a whole group of people that are vested and they have their financial interest and all like this in the early childhood. I understand that. But you as a legislator are here not to represent them. You're here to represent our ordinary citizens. And this bill would take away the right of parents. Now, homeschooling. I'm all for homeschooling, but a parent should not have to go through the rigmarole and a ruse of filing with the homeschooling program at age 4 years and 10 months. If the parents want to keep their children at home till age 7, more power to them. Let's don't take that right away.
Thank you, Mr. Jenkins. Senator Barrow, you had a question for him? Go ahead.
Good morning. How you
Hey,
doing
Senator,
there?
how are you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you today?
Good.
Good. So, first of all, what's the name of the book that you referenced with Dr. Moore?
Two things. Dr. Moore wrote Better Late Than Early.
What's the first name?
Dr. Raymond Moore.
Raymond. And do you know when that book was actually published?
In the late 70s.
In the late 70s.
Now, what they did in that book, it was not a book. He was not the researcher. He gathered all the research together at that time. Better Late Than Early. And the second book was School Can Wait. Those were published by Reader's Digest Press. But actually, the research hasn't really changed. People don't really change. Early institutionalization of children leads to peer dependency, which leads to all sorts of other problems. But it has no educational benefit.
Okay. Well, I have to tell you that I respectfully disagree. Recently, I have participated in a class with Dr. Charlie Zena from Tulane Early Childhood Development Center. And I participated in this program for an entire year. And then I went on to participate in another program through the National Conference of State Legislators. And it has proven that the way and what we thought before as it relates to early childhood development has been really all incorrect because of the industrial age that this country was founded on. Typically, a child would drop out of school very early on, and they thought that having the industrial skills was what was needed most. But what we found, or what they have found and has been proven in research, is that the earlier we start with the brain development, the better off and the more productive that child would be growing up. And so the family unit as a whole, I heard you speak about the family unit, has changed. Would you agree?
Yes, ma'am, it has changed.
And so the two parents being at home, or two-parent household with the mom staying at home, being able to really teach and really make sure that the early development of the child learning being intact, it's no longer what we currently have in today's society. Would you agree for the most part?
Yes.
So I believe that this book may have been good during that era of time, but I believe that the dynamics that we find ourselves now as a country, just in general, blended families, etc. Most women are actually head of household. More than 70% of families are led by the woman, single parent household. So that infrastructure that we used to have, I don't think no longer really truly exists. I believe that the center is really aiming for many children who don't have that level of foundation that you spoke of when you started your comments, when you talked about the family structure, when you talked about those individuals who are committed. Right now, that it's kind of fractured in many families. Many single parents who are leading a household may not be actually ensuring that their children, they're doing the best they can, but when you work in 2 and 3 jobs because you're making minimum wage, then the ability to be able to give that attention and ensuring that that child is learning may suffer some.
Yes, ma'am. I think that's a very good question, and I'd like to respond in this way. You talked about the Industrial Revolution. What happened in the 1800s, early 1900s was the boy was raised at the side of the father working on the farm. The girl was raised at the side of the mother working in the chores around the house and in the kitchen. In that time that they spent together, which was enormous, All the values of the father were transmitted to the son, and the knowledge and information and history and religion and all that, and the same things were transmitted from the mother to the daughter. When the Industrial Revolution came along, what happened was the father was taken out of the picture for much of the time. But he still came home for supper, and in the evening there was still this transmission of information. And then, of course, we had television come along, and we had TV dinners and people sitting there watching TV instead of eating together. This started to break up the transmission of our values from one generation to the next. Now we have the devices, and everybody on devices. Not even, one of the weirdest things is young people go out for an evening together at somebody's house, and they're all texting instead of talking, and the weird part is they're texting each other in the room instead of talking. Yes, it has changed, which is why it is so important that children stay with their parents and get the time with their parents in these very tender ages so that the values of the parents are transmitted to the child, and we not prematurely take them out of the home and put them in an institutional setting.
I don't think that this is what that bill would do. It's not an attempt to stop the parents from having that time with their child and ensuring that. It's only to make sure that the child is starting their early development, their early learning development much earlier, which in some instances these children may not actually even have the opportunity because they may not be in any type of child care facilities, and for them to start off even later by not going to kindergarten only prepares them really and sets them up for failure. I mean, data also shows, and science also shows, that by grade 3, the prison system knows how many more beds they need to build because of where the child is by grade 3. So if they are not getting the early development early on through whether that's going to some type of daycare facility or some type of early learning development, then we now add another year by not allowing them to go to kindergarten. To me, only sets them up for further being behind. The next thing I just want to speak to a little bit.
What you're saying, your premise is that the brain is not developing until they get to some daycare center or preschool or kindergarten. The brain is developing. The
Correct.
question is, what is the best place? And what the research has shown is the richest place in normal households for the child to develop his brain or her brain is at home, not in an institution, because the major influence in that daycare center, preschool, kindergarten is not the teacher. It's not the materials. It's the other children. And that's where that child is learning to be peer dependent. It's what the other children think, not what the parents think. It's the way you want to have problems, make earlier and earlier and earlier institutionalization of children so that the children don't have the values of their parents embedded in them.
Okay.
And that's what this is all
Senator,
about.
he's answered your questions. You've answered his.
No, I'm not. I wasn't finished.
Well, we're here on the cost of this bill.
Correct.
We're not debating the families and the Industrial Revolution. Okay.
I agree, but he mentioned some of those things, and I want to speak to that. The next thing I do want to speak to is he talked about peer pressure, and
you got 1 minute, Senator, and I'm gonna cut it off.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, let's go.
So you spoke to the peer pressure issue. Peer pressure is an issue not just for children, but also for adults. I have witnessed time and time again the number of individuals, just adults, who are under peer pressure. So that to me has nothing to actually do with the child having to be in a family environment. It is just something that we face as a culture as it relates to trying to fit in and be a part of. So again, I just wanted to speak to some of the issues that you spoke to, wanted to clarify that and just say that the science that we have received in these latter days actually speak that the early development of the brain and making sure the kids are in educational environments actually enriches the child better.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you.
All right, thank y'all. Senator Tarver, yours on philosophy or money?
Both of them.
Keep it short.
You said institutional care. This is educational, number one. And let me tell you something. All the books that they used to have for the family and things like that, you can throw them out today. It's a different world out there from when you and I was coming up. It's a totally different world. We had a different family setting years ago compared to today. So what you talk about, all that institute, these kids need education. That's why we're so far behind right now. And I understand what you're saying, but it's about the family. But it ain't the family. It's the same today that it was years ago.
I agree with you, Senator. But what I'm also talking about is the research on early education in an institution. How do those children perform as they move through school? And what I'm telling you is the research hasn't changed, and you can Google it. The research is that children who start school early in a kindergarten don't perform any better than children who are not ever in a kindergarten by the time they are 8 years old. So that's but there are behavioral issues that come into play, and that's what is of great concern.
Okay. Senator Cloud, you wanted to talk about the cost on the fiscal note. Would you cover that real quick?
Okay, yes, sir, you have to put me on. Okay, yes, sir. I just we haven't even mentioned the cost of the fiscal note, which is $6 million to $12 million a year, ranging on how many kids participate in the public school setting. So I just want to put that out there. But Senator Fields, I know he's been very mindful in bringing this legislation. I know that there is science behind it, and I believe in the science behind it, knowing that the earlier children start learning skills and they start being educated, I believe that the better the outcomes are. I've seen it with my own children. But in saying that, I am proposing an amendment, given we've just all heard the consequences, the legal consequences of not enrolling your children, 30 days in prison, $250 or both, minimum condition of probation and parenting classes. And so my amendment, 1819, just says that the penalties provided in that section of law that was read to us shall not apply to the parent or legal guardian of a child below the age of 7. So right now they only apply, those penalties apply to 7 to 18-year-olds. Mine still says that should this bill take place, then those parents who choose to keep their kids at home and teach them at home or however they want to do it, that they can't go to prison for doing so, to jail. Okay, so I'm proposing this. Can I make a motion on my own?
Hold on a second. I have the mic. So Senator Cloud has proposed an amendment number 1819. Senator Fields? We got plenty of objections. Is that all you wanted to do? Say? All right. We do have objection to amendment number 1819 by Senator Cloud. Would you call a roll?
Clarify the vote, Mr. Chair.
The vote will be yes, will be to approve amendment number 1819. A vote no would be to reject it.
So I have a question.
Boudreaux.
So the amendment is we will have two separate sets of rules. What we're saying is we don't want people to go to jail, which we have enough in jail now. I agree with you. We need to stop. But if we're going to pass something and there's no teeth in it, then why would people follow it? I mean, we're taking away and that's what I said earlier. If we start watering it down and making exceptions, then nobody's going to want to do it. And if the law doesn't say they have to do it, they're not going to do it. And then, lately with all our civil liberties, I mean, I don't know how much we can go that far. So,
to answer, we pass a lot of things that are directing people to do it, and we don't put a civil or criminal penalty on it.
And I'm sure the judges will have some common sense, and they're not going to send people to jail for not sending their kids, and there's going to be some hardships. But if we don't keep it whole and we start putting, the dam is going to go down. So, I think the judges will have enough common sense to work on individual exceptions. But I'm not in favor of having two sets of rules and not enforcing them.
I understand your position. Everybody on it. I told you everybody's got a position on education. Everybody's got kids. Everybody went to school. Senator Barrow, please, quick as you can.
Every time I get the mic.
Well, this is
I
your,
just
this
want
is
to-
your
I just
fourth
want to
time
say-
on this issue. That's why I'm
No,
saying.
this is on the amendment.
I know, but on this bill.
So, Senator Cloud, I would ask that you work with Senator Fields between here and the floor, because this sense really just guts the bill. I mean, it makes the bill really almost null and void. I think his attempt is to get those young people who are not going to school, or not those who are actually in other programs with their parents. Because this would gut the bill. So if y'all could work together.
I did talk to Senator Fields. I told him that I was bringing the amendment. I don't know if I have the votes for it, but I do want to call for a vote.
So she's asked for a vote. Madam Secretary, would you call the roll? Wait a minute. This will be a vote on Amendment 1819 on Senate Bill 10. Go ahead. We lose track after an hour.
Senator Cloud. Yes. Senator Abraham. No. Senator Barrow. No. Senator Boudreaux. No. Senator Harris. No. Senator Henry. Yes. Senator Johns. No. Senator Tarver. No. Senator Womack. Yes. 3 yeas, 6 nays.
Okay. By a vote of 6-3, that amendment fails. I see no more questions. I think everybody wanted to talk, came to the table. We have a motion by Senator Barrow to report this bill favorable. Did you read the cards in?
Not yet.
Okay, wait a minute. We're going to read. These didn't want to talk. They just wanted to be in favor?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we have several in favor of it. Let's read them. Go ahead, Senator Cloud.
Okay, we have Mr. Jim Harris with Bessie, Michael Olivier with Committee of 100, Susan Nelson with Louisiana Partnership for Children and Families, Barry Irwin with Cable, Peter Brown with Louisiana Progress Action, Marcus Thomas with Louisiana Association of Educators, Cindy Bishop with Child Care Association of Louisiana, Carrie Griffin Monica, Stanford Children, and Richard Hartley with Office of the Governor. And then we have in opposition and not wishing to speak, Jean Mills with Louisiana Family Forum, and Jesse Leger with Homeschool Louisiana. And we also have present for information Dr. Keith Leger with the Louisiana Department of Education.
And these we already heard from. Put them in the stack.
Okay.
All right. There is a motion by Senator Barrow to move Senate Bill 10 favorably. Is there opposition? If you have opposition, I do not see any opposition. Are you moving for opposition? I saw you lean forward. Just faking. Senate Bill 10 will be reported favorably.